Hey folks, it's Sam, and I'm doing this live update today on Wednesday, October 11th at 4 p.m. on the Virgo eclipse that's coming up in a few days. Um, it's going to be a very transformative shift. As you know, we're in the midst of those transformative shifts now. As you see here, it says Virgo eclipse, watch your mind closely. Mind being related to to Virgo, the intellect, Mercury, um, opposite the Pisces energy, where we just had the full moon. So again, very transformative time. And it says, you see, there's a quote at the bottom. It says, "When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace." Obviously, we live in a world right now that seems anything but peaceful. So, we're going to be breaking those things down in a larger cosmic context as well. Vedic astrology and karma, you are an incarnated Atman experiencing life, and your incarnated self is transcendent of the karma of this lifetime and things like that. And so there's also, I'll be talking about recent themes that have happened and whatnot. So anyway, I hope you will stick around and enjoy this. Please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell on YouTube to get notified of new videos and live streams. Also, leave a comment, share it with others on Facebook, Twitter, or other social media platforms. Yeah, so here we are now, and move this a little bit more forward here. And so this shifting now we're having in this Virgo eclipse. Virgo is, of course, ruled by Mercury, and it's opposite the sign of Pisces, where we just had the full moon. And so this very precise state of mind or capacity to think clearly and rationally and sensibly is what's being activated right now. And as you can see, the south node is still at the very in the very early stages of Libra, and it's still only a few degrees away from the sun, but the sun is in Libra. I'm sorry, the sun is in Virgo, and so when we have these eclipses, obviously the orbits of the sun, moon, and earth line up, and this aligns body, mind, and spirit. Body is related to the earth, literally. This isn't just metaphoric. Your body is composed of elements of the earth. Your mind and consciousness, separate mind, and emotional mind of memories and lifetimes of memories, and also memories in this lifetime, come from the moon. But then your transcendent soul nature, that which is not of this earth, comes from the sun. And as you can see here, even in this diagram, the sun is the Paramatman, the supreme self that's not just incarnated in this lifetime. That filters down into the moon, which is the Jiva Atman, or the separate identity, the separate mind that goes with you from lifetime to lifetime. And then that takes form here on earth in this physical body, where you now experience the world of time and karma and things that feel like your separate self. So when we have an eclipse, the three agencies of body, mind, and spirit all line up in the same plane of three-dimensional space. Now, again, we can overlook, like, well, eclipses, they happen all the time, or la da 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 da. They're regular, but they're not common. Only about 1 day per year is there an eclipse energy going on. When they're not happening, the lunar nodes are still there. Those shadows are still there in the sky, but we only see them when we have eclipses. When the sun is eclipsed, we see that small dot move along the surface of the earth. That's a solar eclipse, and that's when we see that end of the node. Then 2 weeks later, we have a lunar eclipse, and that blocks out the moon when the earth moves in between the sun and the moon. And of course, if you believe in the flat earth, the lunar eclipse makes no sense and you can't explain it. So that should be proof enough to how we know the earth is not flat. Okay? So anyway, but this is a regular phenomena, but it's still not common. It's regular, but not common. Okay. And so we analyze what's happening and what's being concentrated on during the eclipse cycle to see what the deeper lesson is and the alignment that we're trying to awaken. And here it's things related to Virgo, which is precise thinking, paying attention to details, being thorough in our details, in our language, with our discrimination, not just getting or believing in some blurry story that just triggers us emotionally, which is opposite the sign of Pisces. Pisces is where we are prone to just believing some story, believing something that we want to believe in many ways. It's ruled by Jupiter, which is related to hope and inspiration, but also dogmatism, religion, religious fervor, religious fanaticism are all related to Jupiter and also the sign of Pisces. Notice this theme lately in the world. And you see, I have a final slide here with some things written. And the very top of it says, be suspicious of all, or it says, Eclipse in Virgo, watch your mind closely relative to situations that we've just seen in Israel and the Middle East. Be suspicious of corporate media and or influencers training you to hate, appealing to oversimplified emotions rather than a correct story. Now, again, we can look at the recent tragic events that have happened, particularly in Israel and Gaza and that very troubled part of the world. And it would be very easy to get an oversimplified version of what is going on so we can hate this one or hate that one and play right into the dialectic. Note it, this is what I notice about this eclipse and how these external events are showing that one in particular. There have been many in the last couple weeks here in America with our politics. It's so dysfunctional with one of the political parties and their leaders and all this other kind of stuff. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that part of it here. But I just want to show that major theme of using discrimination and concentrating your mind and energy on being precise with your thinking. Now, as it relates to you personally, this also obviously comes in to a lot of areas of your life. Getting the story straight. I've been talking about this for months because we had Mercury retrograde over the summer. It was in Leo, about getting the story straight rather than just sort of believing in false stories and then acting from that place. Now, also, that's a very important thing, is to get that story straight. And again, these eclipses are very powerful in magnifying that. And we're also about to have the lunar nodes change. As you can see, K2, the south node here, is very early in Libra, and it's going backwards towards Virgo. And that shows a big shift that's happening with this nodal axis, moving from K2 in Virgo to Rahu in Pisces. Again, Rahu in Pisces is going to bring a very strong attachment to things like, religious beliefs or these kinds of things, where it can be very confusing for the next year and a half or so, starting in early December, late November, early December. And so that's very important. I put together, if you haven't gotten it yet, a free web class on that nodal shift. So go to rahuketu.net to attend the Rahu in Pisces, K2 in Virgo free web class. We're going to have this shift of Rahu going through Pisces and K2 through Virgo. It'll be from November 29th, 2023 until the end of May of 2025. And I'm going to talk about what it means for your sign, the house axis from your chart, for the world based on past transits. So are you ready for that? What's going to happen? And again, as you can see here, I analyze the nodes, what they are, Rahu in Pisces, K2 in Virgo. You see we have big eclipses coming up with this nodal axis, October 14th, 2023, and then also April 8th next year, and even further into 2025. So again, this is a great opportunity for you to really learn what this transit means. So go ahead and register rahuketu.net. So yeah, as you see, I did that class about a month ago, and I'm talking about the eclipse that's happening now. So many of you got that. But if you haven't, again, go. It's a free web class, no charge for that. And it's certainly something that will benefit you, because I'm sure you don't hear this kind of thing talked about all the time. And these shifts are huge, gigantic shift since the middle of 2022, where Rahu is, moved into Aries and Ketu into Libra. It's now going to move from Rahu into Pisces. So that's going to be the sort of hypnotic focus, and Ketu into Virgo. We need to be very careful of not allowing ourselves to be hypnotized and brainwashed and blown up into this kind of religious fervor, fanaticism, with this lack of discrimination prevailing. And again, look at the nature of the world now. And it's not just religious, like we see in Israel or in the Middle East, but also political, another kind of polarized Republicans, Democrats, this one, that one. And instead of calming down, getting the story straight, we wind up conflating things and losing the correct narrative. And that's what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to understand the truth, what's really happening, and then speak that truth and live those details and live those truths correctly. And again, as you can see, this is a matrix that I've put together, that I've been speaking from, teaching from for a while now. And we're down here in this level of karma. When we're looking at our astrology chart and the astrology of the world and whatnot, we're enmeshed in this karma where we've lost the connection even to the 9 planets and these as the spiritual forces of light and wisdom. Instead, we're tangled up in the confusing aspects of the planets. Instead of true power and true light, which is the true nature of the sun, it's the counterfeit version of power that either comes from within us, or like the government or some other kind of external power structure, rather than the true power, rather than true devotion and true love and feeling, which emanates from within us and which has love and devotion to all beings. We have some limited emotional response. It's very easy to manipulate us emotionally, just tweak us, usually based on our fears, and we're right there, triggered, attached, and insane, and a bit crazy. Again, this comes from the moon in its dysfunctional nature. And again, we're down here on this egoistic level, trying to navigate what are the 3 gunas, is what they're called, trying to navigate the layers of ignorance and attachment that comes from their pure universal source of Vishnu, who is the pure nature of the planets. He's taken form as the 9 planets, the pure nature of God, or Vishnu, the visible form of the universe, is seen as the pure qualities of those planets. But we're disconnected, and so instead we experience them through all these limitations. And things like eclipses are opportunities, actual portals, where body, mind, and spirit align. Everyone is so anxious to claim that there's a portal. I'm not trying to minimize this, but things like the Lionsgate portal or some numerology portal. Oh, it's November 11th. Oh, that's a numerology thing. Again, based on Gregorian calendar, and people get excited. I'm not saying we should be excited about every day, because every day is a portal of sorts. And by the way, it actually is based on the Indian Panchanga. Every day the moon is somewhere, the sun is somewhere. There's a nakshatra, there's a tithi. There's always portals, and if you know how to read it, then you always know what the portal is. But an eclipse is the portal of portals, because as I just said, it's when the orbits of the sun, moon, and earth line up. They only do it for about a day a year. So this alignment. It's literally alignment. Again, this is another one of these buzzwords we hear in New Age circles: alignment, alignment, alignment. Well, this is about as much alignment as is possible in the external. And by the way, every new moon and full moon, we have the orbits of the sun, moon, and earth on the same plane in two-dimensional space, but not three-dimensional. They don't line up because of the angularity of the moon as it goes around the earth. That's why they're the nodes of the moon, because the nodal axis of the because the nodal axis is the lunar nodes. When on these lunations, new moons and full moons, the moon is on the same ecliptic point, because it's not always there. It's either above or below the ecliptic when we have other lunations. So when we see these portals, when these moments do line up, this confluence of energy between sun, moon, and earth, body, mind, and spirit are there. Now, the nakshatra is Chitra. Very powerful. Chitra is ruled by Vishwakarma, who is the celestial architect. Vishwakarma, as a celestial architect, is the one that builds the cosmos. She would say builds the universe that we inhabit in this way, this structural, mechanical relationship of all of these things, even that I'm talking about. This energy that is built with these orbits of planets and the architecture. This architectural arrangement is deified in the form of Vishwakarma. And so this is very important for building and being constructive, and either building things either or, and things that are structurally sound and important, like in form, which is where this one is happening in Virgo. There's more of a literal functional form base to the things that are created. But Chitra also extends into Libra. It's the nakshatra that's half in between Virgo and Libra. And the Libra end of the Chitra nakshatra is more aligned with building relationship, building a structure for humans and for people to function. And again, this is that very diplomatic nature of Libra. At best, Libra is very diplomatic and wanting to build that structure where everyone's values and needs and desires are accommodated and met. In detriment, it can unbalance those things and instead sort of dissolve structure. But this nature of Chitra, this nakshatra of the solar eclipse, again, is breaking down and rebuilding structure from the beginning. And rebuilding this structure from the beginning is what we see happening. Look at how many things have just gotten dismantled and have been broken down and even dissolved, which is the quality of Pisces. I talked about this in my Pisces full moon that I just did, that was also called Pitru Paksha. You can see these are some recent themes that I talked about, and I decided to include this because of the recent intensity and so many things converging. The recent full moon was also called Pitru Paksha, a fortnight to heal and resolve our ancestral karma. But the whole theme of that full moon and in Pisces is about dissolving and letting go and surrendering. Now, again, we can be dissolving and surrendering consciously and letting go of the charge around things, or something might let go of us, or we might just find the structure that we were depending on let go and destroyed. And again, it's opposite Virgo. Virgo is literally related to things like bricks and buildings and structures. And notice how we've just seen, again, particularly the big news of the last few days or the last week has been the terrible attacks in Israel, and now the retaliation against them in Gaza, and bombs and buildings blowing up and people, just terrible things to be seeing. And now having to rebuild from the destruction. And so again, the nakshatra of this new moon, because the sun, moon, and Earth come together and form a new moon and a new beginning is Vishwakarma, Chitra, the divine architect. So again, as much as it's hard to do and hard to stay compassionate, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, only then will we know peace. If we can, we have to aspire to build the next world, to build the world on those bricks, on bricks of love and peace, and not the love of power, but the power of love. We are always building a structure, a foundation based on some literal thing like a brick, or in your own mind and consciousness, because the foundation of your life is also built on your ideas and how you're interpreting things in your world. Am I wrong? How much do the actions you take and the structures you build first arrive as a thought in your mind, and how you are interpreting what's happening? So this is the real seed principle of this next 30 days and this new moon in Virgo. Now, the other thing, and I'm going to do a separate video on this, but I also want to mention that right after this eclipse, as soon as the eclipse happens and we start the first day, Pratipad, that begins Navratri, which is the 9 nights of the Divine Mother, the most auspicious holiday in the year, really, as far as a Hindu holiday celebrating the goddess Durga in all her forms, but also just the goddess energy, which is most often celebrated as the Trimurti aspect of the goddess, which I'll talk more about that. But understand that these are also very auspicious times to rebuild a structure of peace and joy and beauty and love and whatnot. So these are things to also understand, that even though we have tricky times that we're navigating now, and they could definitely, looks like things aren't going to be getting much better soon. There's a part of us, again, that is not just of this earth, that has to put out and has to stay connected to the spiritual truth, which doesn't change in the midst of the terrible events. That's still there. All Hindu literature and epic stories and whatnot took place on battlefields and things like this. So because of these heightened moments, and again, our heart breaks for anyone suffering. And that's not to be glib about any of that, but it's also not to be, desperate or get into despair. And we have to keep doing our practices and showing up and maintaining that level of understanding and awareness, and be mindful of images, and be, really guard your mind closely. As this thing, as Virgo eclipse, watch your mind closely. That's the prevailing theme. And again, you see on this some recent things. Pitru Paksha 2023, I already talked about, fortnight to honor our ancestors. Again, notice the ancestral and religious connotations of some of these recent events. And again, also themes about balance and how unbalanced things are. Also, very prominently figuring into the details now is Mars is also still combust. Mars is going to be combust for many months. And when Mars is combust, there's combustibility. And he's also joined Ketu, the south node, where we're having this eclipse. So these are all very combustible influences that have been happening. And, a few bullets that I put recently is that ancestral karma and personal collective, a deranged sense of balance, which says something like, well, you killed us, now we get to kill you. See, balance. Instead of real diplomacy, which is the nature of Libra, this perverted diplomacy, explosive anger and seething hatred, which is underneath the surface with this Mars combust. Again, the higher capacities of this is greater discipline and greater focus. And again, choosing our battles wisely and seeing who the real enemy is. Maybe the real enemy isn't the person who is also under the thumb of their government, who also is trying to rise above a different type of oppression, who is also, didn't do this, but now is being, marginalized or lumped in with with another group. And I'm saying these things very generally because all of us live under governments who do things we wish they didn't do, and leaders who don't represent us, who leaders and politicians and systems are utterly corrupt, more so now, maybe than almost ever on some level, particularly at this level. And again, we have to stay humane and not play into that game. This is why I'm saying be very aware of the narratives and the stories and be thorough. Again, South Node eclipse energy joined Combust Mars. We already talked about buried resentments exploding now. Virgo eclipse compelling us to think clearly, not emotionally. So this is what I also wrote. This was from a social media post. I already read the first part. But then I put, just to be very literal, behind all these wars and retributions are people motivated to keep power, while normal people are pawns in this vicious struggle. Those in power use ancestral hatred, centuries or decades old, to keep the hatred alive. So until we wake up to this larger game and collectively refuse to cooperate, it will never be over. So again, at some point, humanity will hopefully be able to wake up to these things if we can survive the very dangerous world we're in. In the meantime, there's nothing beautiful or glib about or trying to bypass the terrible things that are happening. There are many things we can do to volunteer or to donate or whatever it might be to relieve suffering. But we need to also watch our mind more than anything else. And especially be suspicious of corporate media and or influencers, especially the ones you might like, training you to appeal to an oversimplified emotion of hatred rather than a correct story. It's them, it's them, it's them. And again, it could be, I'm not just talking about narratives in the Middle East now. I'm talking about Russia, Ukraine, Democrats, Republicans, this one, that one, this one, that one. These are every story is nuanced. I could argue both sides of just about every story almost that people are so polarized about. Vax, not vax, this, not that. You can almost argue both sides of so many things now. And the ones who want to keep the power, get the power, capitalize on the confusion, because there's cottage industries now of influencers who just realize, oh, all I need to do is go online and sort of, walk along the shores of this sort of conspiracy, not dip my toes too much in it, but then back away and then play this and play that, and I'll be rich. Entire industries. And again, this is all just for the love of power, not the power of love. No problem to exploit people and get people riled up if they can make a buck. And this is also influencers. And at this point, we also have to understand the term mainstream media is an irrelevant one at this point. So I'm talking about these things now because they're relevant with the nature of Virgo. And I still hear these things said all the time. Everything is mainstream media at this point, maybe even including me, even though I'm not on the corporate news. Right now, especially popular influencers that you would watch, Joe Rogan or these other people, they're all mainstream at this point. Online is mainstream. Right wing, left wing, all of it is mainstream now. Okay, and so it's the things to really be looking at in my mind is things like corporate. You have corporate media, bought and paid for narratives, especially. And that's what the legacy media is about on right and left. The CNN, the NBC, the Fox, or whatever, that's all corporate. It's all really the same bucket. And then you have social media, which again, there's also terrible incentives built into that. So I'm just talking about this a little bit because, again, when I say watch your mind and watch your narratives, watch what you're believing and who you're believing, this is the thing that I also mean. So again, just to say again, I love this quote, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. So I hope you know peace as well. And I hope your solar eclipse in Virgo, in Chitra nakshatra, is peaceful for you. Go to yourtruenaturevideos.com to get the Live Your True Nature 4-part video series. The first is called Your True Self, Your Cosmic Self, where we talk about the Atman, the Jiva Atman that comes down into the 9 planets of Lord Vishnu, how we incarnate. Then we look at our egoistic struggles in video 3, where we try to return back to the path home, the joyful and wise path home, in video 4. So again, yourtruenaturevideos.com. It's time to know yourself, not just believe in yourself. For a limited time, I'm offering 10 hours of masterclasses, Yoga and Vedic Astrology, Quantum Vedic Astrology, and Spiritual Astrology Masterclass. These are 3 great courses that will really help you a lot. Now, in case you don't know who I am, I taught the Astroved certification course, Dattatreya Shiva Baba, in 2010. Ravi Shankar published my book in 2018. I've been around for decades. I've been teaching these great classes, and if you go to VedicAstrologyEssentials.com, you can get this 90% off discount of these 3 great classes, more than 10 hours, guaranteed value. You can check this out. These 3 classes will give you all the necessary tools to begin to learn Vedic astrology. Please find me on YouTube at Sam Jeppy, Vedic Astrology Teacher. On there since 2007, thousands of hours of classes. Also on Facebook at Astrology Teacher, tons of articles updated regularly, and I'm on Instagram at Vedic Astrology 108, ongoing updates and interaction.